Imagine two people, both want to get in shape and start working out, and both sign up for the gym. Now, person A goes all in, gives everything, and then just quits after a few weeks. While person B also starts, but after a few months, they're still in the gym, still making progress, and eventually they're going to achieve their transformation. Now, most people will think that the difference between person A and B is their level of motivation, but this isn't right. In reality, it has nothing to do with motivation. And after coaching dozens and dozens of beginners, I realized that there are 3 big traps that make person A fail. And today we're going to talk about those traps, how you can avoid them, and build habits that last without depending on motivation. The first trap is the motivation trap. You see, most people will start highly motivated. So if you've tried before going to the gym, you start motivated. And then after a few weeks, you don't understand, but it kind of wears off. Mistake that people will make is that they will start to depend on this motivation to get them going, to get them engaged in the habit that they want to make permanent. And so eventually when it fades, and it always does, because motivation, as we're gonna see, is not something that is constant, people will stop. And that's the majority of people right here. They're gonna start motivated, it's gonna wear off, and then they're just gonna stop the habit of going to the gym. So there's an important notion that we need to talk about, and it is extrinsic motivation. Because the problem about motivation is that there are different types of it. And people usually don't know that. Extrinsic motivation is based on external rewards. So things that are coming from your environment. These achievements can be based on results, on compliments that you get from people, on praises, or what the scale looks like and if it went down. And this type of motivation is unstable and it fluctuates. And it's not something that you should base your habit on. Otherwise, it's not going to be a permanent habit. It's not going to be durable. Because motivation is a very short-term energy system. And I want you to understand that, because it has been built for immediate goals and for survival mainly. It hasn't been built for the goals that you have right now and for the objective when it comes to fitness. Because at the gym, the goal is way too abstract, way too long-term for you to be fueled by this extrinsic motivation all the time. And so it disengages when it sees that the resources that it costs you to maintain this habit is too great for the rewards that you're not getting. And when these rewards are too far away, you don't see the scale going down, you don't see the changes in the mirror just yet, and you don't have people telling you that you've lost weight, you've built muscle, then your brain will stop releasing energy. It will cut the motivation off because it judges that you don't need it anymore. And so people think that something's wrong with them, that it's not made for them, that this habit is not working, and they quit. This is the scenario of person A, but they don't realize that this is part of the process because they have learned to depend on extrinsic motivation. Now, the solution to that is to accept that motivation is going to fluctuate. Motivation is not something that's constant and that's going to always be with you throughout your fitness journey. And that goes for every other areas of your life, it's not just about fitness, it's about relationships, it's about your career, it's about everything else that involves motivation. You have to switch from depending on extrinsic motivation towards something that looks more like intrinsic motivation. So you have to learn to engage in that type of motivation, which is based on the satisfaction that you get from engaging in this activity that you're doing, not for the rewards, but just for the sake of it. This develops over time and it takes a lot of patience. But this type of motivation is durable because it is acquired through delayed gratification in opposition to extrinsic motivation, which depends on immediate gratification. Through learning how to delay gratification, so not getting the praises right at the moment, but still engaging in the behavior, you will allow yourself to build this new system, this new motivational system that's going to fuel you. And in order to start using intrinsic motivation, you need to ask yourself why you really want what you're doing, because you need to find a reason that's profound enough for you to wake up in the morning, not be motivated, and still go to the gym regardless, because you need it. It has to become a need and not just a choice. Because if it's a choice and you're not motivated, your chances are that you're not going to engage in it anymore. The second trap you need to be aware of is the perfection trap. I'm still falling for it even after I don't know, it's been 5 years in the gym. You have set unrealistic expectations for yourself because you don't know what realistic expectations look like just yet. This can show up as a narrative that goes like, I'll never skip the gym. I'll give my 100% every time. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to have this perfect plan and put it in place. And yeah, never skipping a workout ever. This sets you up for failure so bad because then you encounter failure sooner rather than later during your fitness journey. You skip a workout because you've had a big day and you're just drained. You don't have any more energy. And this first failure is going to feel catastrophic because you have created this narrative of perfection in your mind that you are going to do so well that you'll never miss a workout ever. And this is going to trigger an emotional response that's going to be very negative. That's going to prevent you from engaging into the habit again. You're going to sense this. You're going to feel it as guilt or shame or even self-disappointment. And there's a high risk of quitting when you're meeting this first failure. Now, this happens because when your brain doesn't know what it should expect because you just lack the information, you don't know what a normal journey looks like, it's going to try to fill it with this perfect scenario that you build into your mind. And so if you don't plan for failure, you're always going to look for perfection and you're always going to set up these expectations on yourself that is going to be very high and very dangerous because mistakes are part of the process. But this scenario that you've created, this narrative, doesn't allow you to fail. Now we need to understand where that comes from. There's a big part of personality and the way you look at the world, but there's also something to be said about social comparison. Expectations that you create, they come from your own personal experience, but also from your environment, the people around you. Now, the problem with that is our environment, through the rise of social media, has become, social media. And now the people you compare yourself to are people on social media, which are platforms that have been built to represent perfection, aesthetics, and pretty much everything that is not natural. And so this participates heavily on creating false narratives into your mind. And you tell yourself, oh, that guy on Instagram, he told me that if I do this in 3 months, I'm going to look like him if I just stick to the plan. This only fuels disappointment, future disappointment, and fake dreams because you are not in the same position as they are. And they probably don't even show you the real picture. If you want to get out of this trap and you feel like you're in it right now, you need to learn how to accept failure as part of the process. Imperfection is built into the process. Okay, you can't go around it. You're always going to have to face it. More than that, failure is clearly needed in order to learn. When you're learning a new habit, you're not going to have it right from the get-go. Otherwise, it means there's no learning involved. Failure is needed in order to learn, and starting means learning, not making progress. So if you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're not making progress yet. Well, it doesn't look like you're making progress. You are, because you're learning. But during the first phase of your fitness journey, if you want to build muscle, if you want to lose fat, whatever it is, first you have to learn how to do it. And through this learning process, you make mistakes. And good for you, you're supposed to. The key rule now is, when it comes to working out, is to never miss twice. You can skip once if you had a rough day and if you can't make it to the gym or whatever, but 2 skips in a row, and then you start to create the opposite of the habit that you wanted. You start not going to the gym instead of going to it. You want to be careful about that. Focus on consistency, not perfection. This is where discipline comes in, because you're going to have to work on this inner battle that you're getting with yourself, where one part of your brain is trying to convince you not to go because excuses. And this other area of your brain is telling you, man, you should, this profound reason that we talked about. You should go because X, Y, and Z, because you want to be a better person for yourself, because you want to be a future better parent, whatever it is for you. Something that helped me tremendously is to reduce exposure to toxic comparison. And a lot of that is coming from social media. So curate your environment, get rid of the accounts that you think are not healthy for your own progress, or even quit social media like I did. I'm just active on YouTube, but I don't use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, this kind of stuff. I'm not interested in. The third trap is the most complex to navigate. I don't even know if it's a trap, to be honest, because I think everyone has to be a victim of it. Everyone has to fall for it. And the mistake they're going to make is that when you're starting to change, people underestimate how much their current identity, their current self is going to resist the change that they're trying to put in place. Because our brain doesn't like what is not known. Our brain only wants routines, familiarity, and a sense of knowing what is going to happen, being able to expect outcomes very quickly and very simply. This is the reason why new behaviors are going to feel threatening, because they're going to put you in a place where you don't know what to expect anymore. Again, coming back to expectations. So your brain is going to feel in danger because it doesn't know what the outcomes are going to be. And so it creates mental discomforts because there's risks involved. There's the risk of putting you in danger. Well, your brain only thinks about survival. You have to remember that. So in terms of survival, if you don't know what to expect, you could be in danger. You could die. And this is going to put you at great risk of quitting when it comes to your fitness. The old identity that you have, if you haven't been a very physical, very fit person before, and now you're trying to go back to training or whatever it is, your old identity is built on comfort and repetition of familiar patterns that are not going to be associated to fitness. So for example, maybe you've cultivated the pattern of eating out, which is not something that's great when you need to have control over your food. When you try to have this control over your food and you try cooking, you're going to feel great discomfort because you're going out of this known territory, going to the unknown, and you have no idea what to expect and what it's going to look like. And so you're going to feel great mental discomfort. Starting fitness, starting any habit for that matter, is going to be an identity conflict that you will have to navigate. The habits that you're trying to replicate, the habits that you're going to try to put into your life right now are not going to be linked to your identity. So it's going to feel alienating. It's going to not feel like it is natural, and this is okay. This isn't who you are yet. You're not yet a fit person. You're not yet a person that can have control over their nutrition, and this is fine. But you have to go through this kind of filling the gap between your current identity and your future identity, which is what you want to be involved in, act on, and look like. If you want to become a fit person, you will have to go through this identity shift, which is needed. And unfortunately, it's not something you can dodge. It's something you have to go through. So you're not just starting going to the gym. You have to be aware that you're trying to become a person who trains, a person who you admire, a person who is fit. In exchange for that change in identity, you have to expect resistance, because identity battles are going to be part of your routine now, since you're engaging those new habits. But if you push through discomfort, your new identity will eventually stabilize and become your new identity. And that's when going to the gym becomes normal. Being fit is just part of your daily life. And then controlling your food intake and that kind of stuff is just, routine. So be aware of those 3 traps. And as always, I hope this helps. Trust the process.